Son, where'd you find this?
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
And so it was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it on the screen. If the government had to change the school in the grid, they have to shut it down, and that state troopers out there, they got brains flowing, they got the brain machine.
Hold on a second. What's up? I'm sorry. Let me get that right. There we go. Peace and blessings to the good people. Happy hump day. Hope all is well. Hope you staying hydrated and cool, because the weather is definitely switched up. It's no longer winter. There is no chill whatsoever. So we halfway through the week. Friday is right around the corner. Shout outs to my poets, writers, content creators, all that good stuff in between. You know what time it is. You know what day it is. Sydney is in the building. Give her a warm welcome. Like, share, repost. Let the people know that we are on. Grab you something to drink. Get comfortable. And let's have us a good time, you know. Sydney, the floor is yours. Do as you please. It's good to see you. One more Wednesday. I will turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Don't mind me, I'm eating soup. I hope you guys are having a good day. I am pretty jazzed up today. I have been participating in a 50-hour-long live stream put on by climate scientists, environmental scientists, everyone involved within the scientific industry, because they're basically they're proposing budget cuts that are going to significantly reduce funding for a lot of really important programs that we all use, weather reporting and like understanding risks, disaster risks, all kinds of stuff. So I just finished that stream today, and I got a shout out. So I'm a little bit jazzed up after that, but yeah, today's been a good day. So on a less happy note, I'm going to be talking about U.S. consumers today. I like to do these discussions pulling in data, but I will say that for this one, I will be pulling in data, but I also will be pulling from what I've witnessed. I watch a lot of videos of other people compilations of TikTokers and other YouTubers and stuff like that, sharing their experiences, sharing what they've seen, putting together collections of people talking about the same things. And speaking of the government, I do not believe that what is being reported on and how it's being reported adequately reflects the state of the actual American consumer. There's a lot of discussion right now of us being close to entering into a recession. And I think it's a lot deeper than we think. It's just we haven't really started to notice things yet because it's not being made public. So I thought it was really important to talk about this today, given the not only the crisis, the gas crisis, raising prices on everything, including food, including gas, including utilities, when people are already struggling, but also all the other stuff that's going on in the news, with housing, with debt, with gambling. There's so many issues that are kind of intertwined into this topic, that I thought it would be really important to kind of go over what some of the facts say, and then also what I've seen just from my own research. So to start off, the economy is not doing very well. I'm sure a lot of people feel it right now. They feel the crunch because of the price of goods, the cost of living is going up, the expenses that we have to put forth to supply our households are increasing quite rapidly. And not to mention, we are seeing, as I mentioned about the live stream, we're seeing programs being cut, we're seeing funding being decreased, we're seeing money diverted to areas of the government that aren't very helpful to everyday average people. And there's really been in my opinion, a diversion from what's actually happening. Back in probably 2022, 3, I stopped watching any mainstream media because I no longer believe that they adequately reflect what is actually happening. I think they really speak to whoever their invested interests are. And so I think it's more important than ever for people that are paying attention to talk about these types of issues, for those that don't have the opportunity to pay attention to these issues. There's a lot of phenomenal YouTubers out there that have these discussions, that bring up these articles and stories to try and shine a light on these issues. And so, yeah, that's what I want to do here today. Just kind of give a reality check of what's really going on behind the numbers that they're giving us. And I will say some of this might be speculation. I'm not a financial expert. I want to preface that because, sometimes people just only want to hear from experts and stuff like that. But I try and take a whole approach where I kind of try and look at both a combination of experts and lived experience, because I think that reality kind of lives in the middle. Experts don't always get it right. Reality doesn't always show what's happening. So I think you kind of need both for the conversation. So with that, I think I'll start with the debt, because I think that is one of the most significant impacts right now. If people were not as significantly in debt, we probably wouldn't see as much of the pressure as we are seeing, because there wouldn't be this additional burden on people's households. Because with certain levels of debt, you could be spending hundreds or possibly thousands of dollars a month just trying to keep up with your debt. And if you're also coping with increases in food prices, increases in gas prices, and thus travel prices and cost to get to work, and the decreasing number of hours that are available for people to work. Some people aren't even able to get a job or have to work 4 jobs to get by. If you have outstanding debt that is taking that much money from you, those price hikes are going to be felt way more strongly than it would have if you did not have those debts hanging over you. Like if your house is paid for, you don't have to pay for student loans, you don't have to pay for your car. You're literally only paying for food and necessities and stuff like that. It's going to be far easier for you to manage price increases. You have more cushion than if you have debt behind the scenes. So currently in the U.S., my bad, the debt has reached an all-time high of $18.8 trillion. And this is broken down into the major types of debt: mortgages, which is about $13.2 trillion, auto loans, which are $1.7 trillion, student loans, which are $1.6 trillion, and credit card debt at $1.25 trillion. So overwhelmingly, not surprisingly, houses definitely hold the most amount of debt. But the auto loans, student loans, and kind of credit card debt are almost on par with each other. Little bit of a difference with credit card debt, not as high, but yeah, definitely a significant amount of debt is being held in this country, and that's only within the public. That does not account for the, what are we at? $33 trillion. I think it might even be close. $39.2 trillion of U.S. debt, which means the U.S. debt to GDP, or gross domestic product, ratio is approximately 122 to 124%, which, if I remember correctly, that means we are spending we're spending the amount of debt that we have plus an additional 24% on top of it in paybacks. So we're not making any dents at all into this debt. And of course, even though we don't directly pay the federal debt, it impacts us in many different ways. So yeah, besides the fact that the U.S. itself is deeply in debt, Americans themselves are also deeply in debt. Based on the numbers I just gave, the average per household is $154,000 of debt, which obviously it's not going to be the same across the board. There's some people that are not in debt, and there's some people that are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. But overall, roughly every household roughly owes at least $150,000 in some form of debt. So that is quite problematic, especially when you consider that the average income, I believe, is around $64,000. Okay. Average U.S. household income is $83,000, where the average family income is $144,500. So most people, assuming if everyone had the same amount of debt, the income that people are making isn't even enough to cover the debt that they have. So yeah, as I said, having this debt looming over your head makes you far more vulnerable to the changes that are coming within the economy. You can also see the stress within the past due balances and the amount of people defaulting on these loans that they have. Currently, with mortgages, we're seeing filings, foreclosure filings. Foreclosure is what happens when you're no longer able to pay the bank for your home, and so they basically go through the process of taking away the property from you. That rose significantly in the early parts of this year, with 118,000 properties filing in Q1, which is quarter one of the year. And it increased year over year about 18 to 26%. It technically is still below historic norms, but I don't take much comfort in that because it's still an indicator. Just because it's below a historical level doesn't mean it's not something that is concerning. They have initiated proceedings on over 82,600 properties, and bank repossessions have jumped 45% annually. Bank repossessions are when foreclosures are completed. So we're seeing a significant increase in the number of homes that are being repossessed or the banks are attempting to repossess the homes. Some of the highest rates are in Delaware. 1 in every 1,700 housing units are being foreclosed upon. In Indiana, 1 in every 739 houses are being foreclosed on. South Carolina, it has leading rates, as well as Florida has consistently high rates of foreclosure. Additionally, we've also been seeing a change in rent as well. Foreclosures is when you have a mortgage, when you bought a house. Rent, obviously, we all know, is when you have to pay somebody else for the house that you're living in, or apartment or condo or whatever you're in. And those, where did my thing go? Those rates have also been increasing. It's harder to get eviction numbers because some, rent is under the table and stuff like that. And sometimes it's not documented appropriately and stuff like that. But overall, rent in the top 100 largest U.S. cities has increased by 1.73% over just the past year. And that has technically kind of matched with inflation. Inflation was 2.41. But again, that's only factoring in rent. It's not factoring in food prices, which have gone up between 5 and 25% or more, depending on the food products that you're looking at. I'll kind of go over that in a little bit. And it also varies widely based on the location. For example, San Francisco, between this year and last year, saw a 14% increase in rent, making my daughter decided to come in here, making it the highest rent increase, even more than New York at this point. Over the past 5 years, San Francisco has gone up 35%, which is crazy. The average rent in San Francisco is now $3,800. I'm pretty sure that's for a 2-bedroom because that's usually how they do these ratings. But no matter what, that's still wild. That is way, way more untenable than I think most people can do. No, you can't have a dragon. Here, go downstairs. Go watch TV. Additional places that have had sharp rent increases include Reno, Nevada, and Chicago, Illinois, which have been absorbing a lot of people that are moving there. So that's probably a component. They saw a 6.5% increase in their rent, where Virginia Beach and New York had 5.4% increases. Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky had 5.1. Oakland, California was 5. Minneapolis was 5. So a lot of places are seeing significant sharp increases in rental prices. Nolly, can you go downstairs for me? Please? Please go downstairs. Trying to reason with a 3-year-old. Thank you. So, yeah. Rental prices have been skyrocketing. And as a result, this is one of the areas where I could not find data that I believed reflected the actual numbers. They have generally found that homelessness hasn't really increased that much, but I do not believe that, to be honest. I watch part of the content that I watch is I like to watch compilations of people talking about their experiences, and some of those compilations are people that are talking about moving into cars, moving into storage units, moving onto campsites out in the wilderness, because they cannot afford housing. And also a number of people that are moving in with family members, couch surfing, staying at work, living in gyms, basically, like sleeping in their car but using gyms for all the other services. So I truthfully do not believe in the numbers that the government puts out there, because I think a lot of people are not admitting to the fact that they are homeless. It is incredibly hard to find jobs if you're homeless. It is also embarrassing. It's a mental thing. And so I think that there are a lot more people that are struggling than the statistics are reflecting. And again, this is just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope that it's not as bad as it seems. But just from the videos that I've seen, the discussions I've read, more people than ever are relying on their cars to live in. The fact that we're seeing changes within rental storage unit facilities where they're more on top of tracking the cameras. I've heard them putting in place what do you call it? Like, it tracks who comes and goes into the building and when, so they can check to see that people are not spending excessive amounts of time in the storage unit. They're checking for cords running out the doors. They're doing a whole bunch of things now to ensure that people are not illegally living in the storage units. I know they're also doing crackdowns on homeless encampments, and even within like parks and city streets, they're putting homeless hostile architecture to prevent people from being able to sleep on the streets or use benches or use the city property to exist. I'm not sure if you've ever noticed, but like a lot of benches now have a median type of thing put in the middle. That way you can't lie down across the bench. I've also seen some as much as putting in like spikes and stuff like that. Or putting spikes on like the concrete I don't know what to call them, walls that people can sit on. And so I think that's another like silent indicator of how much homelessness has increased, or at least how much the stigma remains towards homeless people, which is quite horrifying to think about, because a lot of people can't help becoming homeless. It happens because of a medical thing. They lose their job and just get unlucky. Like, there's so many different normal reasons that people could end up. A disaster destroys their home and they can't afford to build a new one. Like, there's so many reasons why people can end up becoming homeless. And for us to treat them like they're some vermin and they're disgusting and plagues on society and taking advantage, it's horrific. This is not how people should be treating homeless individuals or people in general. In Norway, I believe, Norway or Sweden, one of the two, they have programs where if you're homeless, they put you up in this like temporary apartment like facility, and you can stay there for like months or years, I think, and they'll help you. They'll teach you they'll do like financial coaching. They'll help you find a place. They'll help you find a job. They'll help you get health care. Like, they have all of these things to help people get off the street, and they don't really have a relapse rate. Whereas a lot of people who end up becoming homeless statistically are more likely to become homeless again. So just even the way we treat homeless people is ridiculous. But it's still, to me, another indicator of just how bad the economy is without people saying it out loud. The fact that people are so desperate that they're staying in illegal situations just to have a place to live really speaks to the disparity in this culture. Like, we have rich, I want to use an insult here, but I won't. We have rich people that have homes on islands, homes in 4 different states. They have McMansions, or even just straight up mansions. They have like 5 boats and a plane and all this crazy extravagant stuff. Meanwhile, there's people that are struggling to find a place to sleep at night. I think that's disgusting, to be honest. And it's not really talked about. I don't really see it talked about on any of the mainstream news channels. And if they do, it's typically framed as more of a, like, look at the scourge on society, look at these people that are homeless and lazy and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's their fault. They might have homeless resources that they drop in at the end, but for the most part, they're not trying to offer any empathy or understanding to these communities. They're basically just saying, oh yeah, look at the record homelessness, look at these nasty people in the park. And it's so inhumane. But yeah, that was kind of a tangent, kind of a ramble right there, but it's really important to think about, because number one, again, as I said, humans, we are all humans. We all deserve a place to sleep. A comfortable place to sleep inside. We all deserve food to eat. We all deserve medical health care. We all deserve compassion and understanding and concern, which we're not giving to people. And as this economic decline continues, it's only going to get worse. This record debt is going to catch up to people. It's starting to catch up to people, but it will catch up more, especially as people struggle to make ends meet. As I mentioned, I think last week, people have also started to default on utilities. They've been trading buying food or medication for turning the lights on in their house, having heat in their house, having air conditioning in their house. That is not a healthy consumer right now. If somebody isn't even able to have the very basics, there's something wrong with how this economy is set up, and there's something wrong with the future, with our financial futures. And I find it hard to believe that it is only our fault. That is something that a lot of the highly wealthy, the businesses, the government itself loves to push on people, is that if you suffer an economic decline in your own life, in your own personal life, if you have high debt, if you lose, if your house gets foreclosed on, if you default on your loans, it's your fault. You didn't manage your money well enough. You didn't know how to do things correctly. Of course, there are cases like that where people spend frivolously, but I think what they're missing is that it is the overall pattern. It's not just a small group of people. This is across the board. People just can't afford the things they need. I'm also seeing with healthcare, the extravagant prices people have to pay just to be able to use a doctor. I had a friend recently she thought she had a serious condition, but she didn't want to go to the emergency room because it would have cost her $500 just to visit the ER. And that wasn't even to get the actual treatments. I've also been seeing people talk about how much they have to pay for insurance and for health insurance. And sometimes people are foregoing health insurance because it's thousands of dollars a month and they can't afford it. And if you can't afford to pay for health insurance, you're going to have to pay hundreds, thousands of dollars for all the other stuff that you need. So it's becoming obvious that, or not obvious, it's becoming untenable. Like, people are having to spend way more money than they could ever make, and this is why we're seeing people rely on the debts. People aren't putting themselves into debt because they want to. They're putting themselves into debt a lot of the times because they have to. Again, ignoring the people that make stupid decisions, because I mean, we all do that. We all buy things we shouldn't have. We all spend more than we should. But the fact that people are using debt, credit cards to buy food, to buy medication, just to afford utilities is an indicator that something is seriously wrong, that people are not making enough to get by in any normal capacity. If you compare numbers to like 1950s, 1960s, one person on a minimum wage, with a minimum wage, like blue collar job, was able to support an entire household, a spouse, multiple kids, the car, the house, the food. Like, they had time, they had money left over to have nice furniture or go on vacations or do other things for fun. A lot of people do not have that flexibility anymore. I have seen people in tears talking about how they get up, they go to work, and they go to bed. And that's their life. They don't get to go out to eat. They don't get to go anywhere. They don't get to see people. They don't get to go on vacations because they don't have the time. They don't have the money. Speaking of using credit cards for food, according to Urban Institute analysis, in this year, 1 in 4 U.S. adults now pay for their groceries with a credit card and carry a balance on that credit card. So they're basically taking out high interest loan just to have food on the table, which is crazy because you'd think that loans would be applied to things that that last a really long time. Like historically, cars would last you 10 plus years, houses would last you 25 plus years. And so it would make sense to pay small amounts over time to pay for this item. But you're going to pick up debt, like just even from my own household. I would say average visit to any restaurant is going to cost you at least $100. If you have a family like I do, it's going to be at least $100 easily. And if you are putting this on credit cards, and let's say you even eat out like 4 times a week, 5 times a week, or even less, like you're putting $2 to potentially up to $1,000 on your card every week. There was a woman I saw yesterday, I believe. She had come on to Caleb Hammer. What's his show called? She went on his show. He basically does audits to help people understand how to move forward. Financial audit, that's the show. He brings people on his show and he talks to them about their finances and helps them understand how to move forward, how to reduce their debt, how to create savings, stuff like that. Obviously, it's very theatrical in some ways, but it is a reflection of the type of spending habits that are out there. There was a woman on there that spent like $36,000 in just a few months just on food, not the other stuff, just food, just eating out. So there's a lot of people that are either so checked out that they just kind of stress eat, buy whatever food they want, and are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars weekly just to buy food. And then there's some people that literally are using credit cards because that's all they have. They don't have excess money. In all honesty, I fall under that category. If it was not for my family members helping, my husband and I would be using debt to pay for food. I'm not going to lie about that. And he has a very good job. We have our whole housing situation set up. We don't have to pay utilities because of our housing situation. But we still would not be able to afford to buy groceries if it wasn't for my family members helping us. And that's because, well, we still have to pay for our insurance. We still have to pay for gas. We still have to pay for our cars and repairs and the stuff for our kids and the stuff for like the co-pays and all of the other stuff that existing as a human being requires. So we don't have some of these overhead costs that other people have, and we still are struggling to make ends meet. I want to be totally honest with you, because I want people to understand that it's not just the irresponsible people that are struggling. Yes, there are people making dumb decisions. There are people that are gambling away their money. There are people that are spending exorbitant amounts of money on cars that they don't need, trading them in for something higher before they even pay off the original car. We have people signing up for mortgages that can't actually afford to pay for the mortgage, or talked into buying really fancy things that end up wasting the money. But I truthfully believe the majority of Americans are not that stupid. We are not making these decisions. It's not across the board. Like, there are a lot of people that are still somewhat financially literate, somewhat frugal, somewhat aware of the entire situation going on and are making efforts to cut back where they can. And this is something that companies are noticing. As I was saying, food prices have been growing exorbitantly. Since 2020, there's been a 24% increase in food prices overall, which outpaces the wage growth that we've seen in pretty much all sectors. I saw a nice little graph. Let me see if I can find it, showing the food price changes since last year. Let's see. Just for, let's see. I think this is it. Since, let's see. I don't know what year that is. Change in average prices in food items in the U.S. between 2021 and 2025. So tad bit outdated, but still very much relevant. Eggs have increased in price 238%. Coffee has increased 53%, sugar 48%. So then if you apply that to all the things that use sugar, all of those things have gone up a large percentage. Ground beef 40%, butter 35%, ice cream 29%, rice 27%, flour 26%, soft drinks, white bread both 25%, chicken breast 22%, whole milk 16%, pork chops 15%, tomatoes 6%, bananas 4%, cheddar cheese 1%. Randomly threw that in there, but these aren't even like excessive items. These are staples. We have ground beef, we have rice, flour, bread, chicken, eggs. Like, the prices have increased astronomically in certain areas. And again, this is 2025. This does not factor in the prices that we've seen in 2026 as a result of what's happening overseas. This whole, all of this is being felt, and it's not just us that it's not just us that are noticing these things. I increasingly, over the last probably 6 months or so, I've been seeing stores coming out, CEOs of big companies coming out and saying that they're noticing these things too. They're issuing warnings, despite what the government keeps trying to reassure. Oh, the economy's fine. The stock market is great. Fun fact, only about 50% of the population is actually invested in the stock market, and the majority of those people are highly wealthy individuals. So that's probably why it looks okay, because the rich are still able to invest, but most everyone else isn't. But just to rattle off a short list: Chase, Lowe's, Home Depot, Target, Walmart, Costco, Vons, I think, what was the other one? Aldi's. These companies, major companies that absorb a significant amount of retailer customer money, all of them have been noticing cutbacks and changes in the stability of American consumers. For example, Walmart, Costco, Target, they've all pointed out that consumers are either not buying certain products anymore. They're backing off on buying like frivolous expenses like candies and pastries and sodas and stuff like that. They've also been noticing swaps. This one stood out to me. I forgot which company said it. People have been switching from beef to tuna I am not a fan of tuna at all, so that's partially why it was so surprising to me. But the economy's bad when people are switching from beef to tuna. People are also switching to chicken, and some people are also foregoing meat altogether because they are not able to afford the cost. People are switching more to unprocessed or like low processed foods because they're cheaper. They're switching to produce and fruit and like frozen vegetables and rice and stuff like that instead. They're pulling back from shopping at restaurants. Domino's, for the first time in years, is decreasing their prices because they've noticed that people can't afford their pizzas anymore. I think Papa John's was talking about the same, or Pizza Hut, one of the two. Like even pizza chains, which is usually the like go-to, I don't want to cook, I don't want to spend a lot of money, go-to food. They are noticing people pulling back and not spending money at these stores. Home Depot and Lowe's is also very significant. They have been noticing a pullback in costs and income since 2025 at least. Could have even gone farther back than that, but that was when I started to notice it. They have noticed a significant decline in people coming in and shopping there, which is really important to think about, because if people are not going to Lowe's and Home Depot, that means they're not renovating their homes. They're not they're not renovating their homes. So they're not doing anything to upgrade the inside of their homes for themselves. They're likely also not selling their homes and doing all of the stuff that is required to get your home ready for that. And so that really indicates that people don't have extra income to beautify their homes. They're leaving it as is. They're not trying to do any frivolous like redecorating or whatever that some people like to do when the economy is doing a lot better. It also indicates that people are staying in their homes. We're past this 2020 level, like I'm buying a home and then selling it for a higher amount of money, and then buying a new home and then selling that for a higher amount of money. I'm flipping homes. People aren't doing that anymore. They can't afford to. It's not cost effective. And some people, again, just from the discussions that I've seen online and some of the statistics, people are sitting in their homes longer and waiting. And if they are trying to sell their homes, they're waiting months to even get interest. And it's usually a lowball offer because the price is seen as too high. When people stay in their homes and decide that it's not worth it to move, it's because the prices of homes are too high, or it's not cost effective and worth it to move. And I think it also is a secret indicator that people don't want to change jobs either. Jobs are another area that are significantly affecting people in the United States. And this is something that I think most people can really resonate with. I experienced this even in my own network, where I see friends and family members trying to find jobs, but they'll apply for tens or hundreds of jobs and not get a single call back. When I got my first job, I walked around this plaza that was near my house, and I went into the different stores and I was like, hey, are you hiring? And one of the places that I went into was like, yeah, sure, fill out an application. And within like a week or a couple weeks, I had the job. And today I see friends doing the same thing, and they have a hiring sign on the door. And then the people in the store is like, oh, we're not actually hiring. We just keep that up just in case. Or even worse, like I've seen people that companies like on LinkedIn and stuff like that, they'll have a perpetual ad advertising for jobs. But it's only so they can get like their numbers up or something. Like it's for corporate. It's not even to get jobs out there. It is an abysmal job market out there. At just from talking to family and friends, most of the jobs that you can get right away are like UPS and stuff like that. But even in certain areas, even they aren't hiring. I think this is another area where we know it, we feel it, we see it, but they're not talking about it. They keep saying, oh yeah, there's jobs out there, you can get jobs with AI and blah, 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 blah. But I don't believe that's genuine. I think a lot of jobs that are out there are fake, are false flags, are just to gain traffic, to gain attention, but they aren't actually looking to hire people. And we're also seeing now companies are struggling so much with paying people. They can't afford to pay the workers they already have. So they're consolidating jobs. We're seeing record numbers of layoffs, or at least to me, it feels like records. They're firing people because they can't afford to have them. I've seen it in videos, and I've also heard it from my friend group. People will get hired and then immediately get fired because they can't afford to pay for the person. Or this happened with a family member. They were the top employee at the store, and the person hired 2 younger workers that were willing to be paid less, and then they fired him because, like, oh, well, we only have to pay, like, we pay you more, but we can pay them less and get more work out of them because there's 2 of them. And so he ended up losing his job because they wanted to hire the cheaper people rather than the experienced person. So yeah, the state of the job industry is also a complete and total mess. I find it ironic because I've seen articles posted by economic groups and also directly from, like, comments directly from corporations where they're like, people aren't trying to work. People don't want to work these days. I'm like, they do want to work. They just don't want to work for your what you're willing to pay them. I recently watched, again, another secret indicator. I watched a video recently of it was like a compilation of just ridiculous job demands. And there was one person that wanted someone who had a PhD $15 an hour. $15 an hour for a PhD. Please. No. So, yeah. There are, like, part of me feels a little bit bad because I get it. Like, the economy is so bad. Consumers are not spending money, and you might not have the money to pay for your workers. But some of this stuff is just insulting. Like, they want somebody who's willing to work 40 hours for minimum wage and you aren't willing to give them any health benefits. You aren't willing to pay into the 401k. You're not willing to give them reasonable time off or vacations or whatever. And then you wonder why nobody wants to work. It's probably the same reason why nobody wants to have kids anymore. They keep berating the young people for not wanting to immediately jump into bed and have a bunch of children and get married and whatever, when people can't even afford a studio apartment by themselves and are working 40 hours a week just to make nothing. No, nobody wants to bring a kid into that. Like, it's this discrepancy where they see us and they see us as lazy. They see us as, oh, we don't care, we're out of touch, we don't have any values or whatever, when really it's like, no, we need more to get by. Like all y'all billionaires that are getting $100 million kickbacks just from your companies, compared to us when we're struggling to make ends meet on like $24,000 a year. No. I understand more so the bottom end of the spectrum. I don't believe all this stuff about, oh, well, it's people doing this to themselves. I'm like, no, it's not. And another thing to consider too is buying stuff. Like, I also have seen a rise in people spending superfluously, spending thousands of dollars on clothes, gambling, like phone apps, you name it. Like, people are spending absorbent amounts of money on things that they don't need. But if you think about it, our spending habits are very closely intertwined with our mental health. And if you, I can say this from personal experience, I can say this from videos that I've seen of other people talking about it. There's even a term for it, doom spending. If you feel like you don't have a purpose, if you have nothing to work for, if you have nothing to look forward to, the only thing you're going to do is spend, especially in a consumerist economy. If being out in nature makes you depressed because you think about all the places that are getting destroyed by these companies, or you can't even afford to get there because it costs too much to drive or to buy a park pass for $40 or go to Disneyland for over $1,000. Like, if you can't afford to do things, you're going to buy things, because that's, unfortunately, a lot of people, that's all we have. It's just pacifying ourselves by buying stuff. And so I know I see this a lot, where they like to blame the consumer, saying, oh, well, it's because they're spending all this money on clothes and toys and knickknacks, and people are collecting Labubu's and whatever the latest water bottle is, and whatever, like avocado toast, like you name it. They love to throw it at the younger generation, saying it's our fault for spending all this money on stuff that we don't need, when people, it's like a chicken or the egg type of deal, where how do you know we're not spending because we're stressed out? This is all we have. This is the only thing that we have to give us joy. Like, people are more socially isolated than ever. People can't afford their rent. People can't afford to keep themselves healthy. People can't afford to go and do nice things. So they just spend money on things around the house that make them happy. Clothes that make them happy, makeup, whatever. Things that make them feel good. There's even links mental health wise, like people with ADHD have higher need for stimulation. They tend to spend more money. People with bipolar disorder, when they're in manic episodes, they tend to spend more money. People who are depressed tend to spend more money because they're trying to kind of compensate for the emotions that they're feeling. And so to me, I see it more as this overspending is not because we're just whimsical and don't care. It's because we're all hurting. It's just the only way we know to cope with it because of the type of world that we live in. I mean, everywhere you look, there's advertisements, billboards, on our phones, on our computers, even on people's fridges nowadays, even in people's cars, there are advertisements everywhere. And so it makes sense that we might rely on consumerism to make ourselves happy if that we think that's the only option that we actually have. We're losing third spaces. People can't just go and hang out at a cafe with friends. People don't have the opportunity to just go out in nature. Like, all of these things have been ruined by commercialism and consumerism, and they've made it a pay-to-play environment across the board, everywhere. So to me, when I see these arguments that are like, oh, well, it's just because we're wasting our money and we have no financial literacy and whatever, we have no incentive to. People are so messed up by this whole society that we're put into. This is the only way we know how to cope. So I think it's important to kind of reconsider where this behavior might actually stem from beyond the accusations made by the upper echelon. And this like out of touch nature is very apparent even within the graphs. We are going through what is called a K-shaped economy, where you have the wealthiest groups of people doing super well. Like they're doing great. Their stocks are doing great. They have their businesses, their cars, their whatever. They have their jobs. Where the rest are going down the K. And yeah, I think this mental mindset really shows that K-shaped economy well, where you have the wealthy believing, well, everyone's doing fine, when everyone else knows we're not. And then additionally, I wanted to add, what was I going to say? Walmart, one of the recent statements they made, probably about in March, they've been saying, McDonald's. It was McDonald's. Possibly Walmart, but I know it was McDonald's for sure. They made a statement earlier this year saying that they've noticed low-income families are no longer relying on McDonald's as a frequent meal option. The wealthy are now relying on McDonald's as a meal option. They've been seeing the poorest consumers fall away and not be spending money in these locations, where the wealthiest are starting to turn to these places to eat. You know the economy is not doing well. You have rich people going to McDonald's and poor people who McDonald's was in essence made for in the beginning of time, not being able to afford McDonald's. And I actually, just a fun personal story, I quizzed my mom a couple months ago asking her how much she thought McDonald's would cost now. Because obviously when I was a little kid, we used to go to McDonald's with my friends and whatever. And so I asked her, like, how much do you think a 10-piece chicken nugget meal is? And she guessed it was like under $5. And I think now if you get the meal, it's like $10, $20 or something like that. So yeah, she was very, very shocked by that. But yeah, it gives this discrepancy where the rich is still continuing to do fine, the stock market is doing fine, but everyone else around is like, am I crazy, or is life like incredibly hard? I've seen people crying because of the debt they have, the job situation they have, being homeless. Like, the wealthiest are very, very out of touch. And the fact that statistics keep reflecting more so the upper levels of the economy more so than the bottom, and aren't touching on these issues that I'm seeing everywhere, makes me think that they're either extremely out of touch or they don't care. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because one, in my opinion, there's not a lot of good information out there. If you like Google it or look to the news, they don't have this type of stuff out there. And a lot of them are on the rosy flower end of the scale where they're like, oh, well, it's not that bad. It's actually like in the past it was worse in these time periods, but we'll get through this. It'll be fine. And I think that's doing us a disservice for us to really face this problem head on, especially with this looming gas crisis that I'd say looming, but we're in it. We're just kind of waiting to see the severity of the impacts come to fruition. We are not in a very good place, and it does us a disservice to not have this information at hand and not be as realistic as possible. And I do not trust the news anymore to give us realistic information, because they're always going to have their stockholders and their beneficiaries in mind over us. We do not help them. We do not give them money on a platter to help support their situation. We do not get to dictate to them what they can and cannot talk about. And so they will not talk about the issues that are actually affecting us, because that would be bad for the economy. You don't want to spook the buyers. So sorry, I've been talking all day. So I felt it was very important to touch on this topic and be as real with you as possible. As I said, I really wanted to pull in a lot more numbers, but I had to rely more on what I was hearing and seeing with my very own eyes, because the data doesn't reflect what I believe is actually happening. And again, I'm not an expert. I don't have a financial background. I just love to read. I love to research. I'm always watching videos from experts and lay people alike who are showing the patterns and what's happening in society. But I think it's important for us to be way more honest with ourselves about what is actually happening, so we can find the solutions that actually work for us. Because as it stands right now, I like, not to toot my own horn, but back in 2020, I kept telling my friends and family, I guarantee you we're going to be in a depression by 2025. I was off slightly. I was definitely off, but we are now seeing those signatures in 2026. Just knowing how patterns of the economy go, how systems change, just patterns of history and stuff like that. It was already incredibly likely that we'd see this type of situation, but with everything else that's going on, it makes it almost inevitable. And I want to be honest with you guys about that, that we are very, very likely going to be seeing like Great Depression-like conditions within the next year. Even the more moderate groups that usually are more like, oh, maybe, but probably not. I've been seeing a lot of them flip and have been saying that we're going to see a recession by the end of summer, especially if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened by then. Because as I said last week, when you have a competition for a limited amount of things, you have less gas available for people, you're going to see price increases no matter what. And that's not factoring in the food costs, health costs, insurance costs, debt, job crisis, mortgages, auto loans, student loans. There's something nasty coming down the pipes. And yeah, I really felt it was important to have a candid discussion about these things. I know usually I come at it more as like a scientist with all the numbers and facts and stuff, but I wanted to be as real as possible this time, honest. And honestly, for the people that are going through this too and feel like they're alone, feel like nobody understands, or that something must be wrong with what you're doing because I can't get ahead. I want people to see that it's not their faults. It's not your fault if you're struggling like this. We are in an economy set up to fail us because we are not rich enough to pay our way to get what we want. And I haven't seen anything about it yet, but I do worry about the mental health crisis that will come with the financial crisis. And so that was also a secondary reason why I really wanted to talk about this, because I think if people know that it's not their fault, they know that there's a way out to fix it, and they understand that like the system is set up against us, and it's not because they have made a whole string of bad decisions or whatever like that. It might assuage some of that guilt and anger and pain that can come. So yeah, I just felt like it was really important to talk about right now, especially before the summer, because usually the summer is when you start to see the real impacts come to fruition, because people are not going on vacations. People are not, like, kids are at home now, and people are more likely to be at home, staying at home from work and stuff. So it becomes more obvious that financial problems are on the horizon. So yeah, I really hope this was informative. I also hope that for anyone going through these situations, it gave you a little bit of peace knowing that you're not alone. It's not just you, and that people are still thinking about you. People still care about you. Even though I don't know you, I don't want to see anybody suffering, struggling to afford housing or food or medical costs. I think that is absolutely a disgusting aspect to the society. And I think it's a shame that we have politicians that care more about the money in their own pockets than the people that are trying to make ends meet and are just trying to be good people. So shout out to all the hardworking people out there that are just trying to make a living and trying to make life better for themselves, their kids, their friends, their family members. This is a tough time to be alive. And I just hope that things don't get as bad as it can get. But I also just wanted to be honest with you about what I think the future could hold. So that is the end of my spiel. I'll probably come around and talk about other aspects of this again, because this is going to continue. What's the word? Not modifying. My God, words. It's going to continue changing over the next months or so. And so I'll definitely be addressing these topics again. But I just wanted to give you guys a rough overview of what I think I'm seeing in the economy and what I think the state of the U.S. consumer actually is if you remove all of the biases that are placed in by the media. So again, I hope you enjoyed the talk. I know it's a bit depressing, but do know that we are here to support you. Us at Assembly of Excellence are glad that you're here, and we just want to continue supporting you, providing you information that can help you. And I seriously hope that things go well, and things get better for people. Just a couple tidbits to end with. If you have debt right now and you are able to, in even the slightest way, start paying off your debt now. It's much better to enter into an economic decline recession, depression, whatever it ends up being, if you have lower amounts of debt, then it is to try and deal with all of that at the same time. So, if at all possible, try to start paying down any debts that you might have, because that will make it significantly easier for you. But I understand if you can't, it's rough out there. So anyway, I hope you guys have a fantastic Wednesday. I will be here again on Friday. And of course, I'll have my usual segment next week on Wednesday. I appreciate anyone who hung out with me today. And yeah, have a awesome week.
His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it on the screen. If the government had to change the school in the grid, they have to shut it down. We got state troopers out there. We got planes flown. We got the range machine.